70% of the world population will be carrying smartphones, right? And that's a huge penetration. So currently the numbers are not of this order, okay? And if you think of it, so that is actually 5.7 billion smartphones, right? And so in the Indian context, so we don't understand million and billion, so let's convert it into crores. So this is essentially 570 crores, right? More than our country's population, of course, okay? So there's a huge number of people carrying smartphones. So essentially so many devices, and definitely so each one, so there's going to be huge demand for data, right? So the current 5G technology is not in a position to satisfy that demand. Okay? And so one more thing is what is upcoming is it's not only the smartphones that we are going to encounter in the future, right? So the smartphones are human centric, but now we are going to have applications which are device centric, right? So already some of these things you might have, many of you might have experienced, right? So we have these smart bulbs at homes these days, right? You can install them and you can control them using your smartphones, okay? So in future, it will be all pervasive, right? So all your devices, smart homes, right? So all devices are connected via smartphone. And we are talking about self-driving cars, some of which are already there in the Western countries. At some point in India, in Indian context, also self-driving cars would come, right? So a lot of activities are going on here. And industry automation is one example, right? Which are device-centric, right? So the human in the loop is going to reduce more and more, and devices will plan to be automated, okay? So connected to the internet, right? So even people are talking about smart healthcare, right? Where the surgeries perhaps might happen in a remote fashion, right? So, so again, once we look into the Cisco report, in fact, these machine-to-machine devices, right, is going to grow by 30%, right, from what we had in 2018. 2018, very simple, like smart bulbs and maybe smart fans at some context, okay? But it's going to grow at 30% rate, and this is in contrast to smartphone growth, okay? So that's only 7%. And by 2023 or even 1 or 2 years after that, the number of devices which are connected to internet is going to be much more than the number of smartphones. Okay, so that's also something which cannot be ignored, right? And now, so this is where 5G comes into picture. So the existing 4G technology is not able to handle this kind of traffic and this kind of new devices. It's not designed for essentially. It was mainly designed for mobile broadband, not for device-to-device connections. Okay, so that's where we have to switch to 5G. Okay, so now once we know the need for 5G, so let's also try to understand what is 5G. So in this context, let's gradually do a recap of how this telecommunication technology evolved also, right? If we look at the early 1980s, okay, so we call that as the first generation of cellular technology. So it was essentially analog voice. Okay, so analog modulation techniques were used, and mostly for voice calls. Okay, and at that time, so still it had not penetrated the Indian market, right? So only we had the landline telephones at that point, right? So Indian market was not open for the cellular technology at that stage, right? So this was the first generation, and then by mid 1990s, okay. So we got the second generation where they switched to digital voice. Okay, so this was predominantly due to the invention of turbo codes, I would say. Okay, so that enabled the capacity of digital communication, decoding technology, essentially. Okay, so switching to digital was extremely useful at that. I mean, beneficial at that time, right? So digital voice was introduced. So mostly the CDMA technology was introduced at that time. Okay, so code division multiple access was used, and again it was mainly for audio calls, right? And the clarity was more, and number of connections also was can be improved, right, compared with analog. So then early 2000s, the third generation started, and this was also for mobile data, right? So they introduced CDMA 2000. So this was for voice as well as mobile data. And if you recall, some of you who had mobile phones in early 2005 or something. So this mobile data was mainly for very lightweight traffic. Okay, for instance, you could check your emails. Okay, and perhaps you can check some news and so on. So very lightweight. So even it would take some time for web pages to load also. Okay, so the mobile data was introduced at that time. Then we have this current 4G technology introduced in 2010s, and it created a drastic change in the telecommunication market, if you see, right? So LTE, long-term evolution, was introduced, and mobile broadband became very common, right? At some point, it was surprising. Even when I first time, although I was a PhD student, and when I came across this 4G, had a smartphone, and you can browse actually. Live streaming was possible, right? So YouTube, even live news and everything was possible. So that was an amazing change that we could see, right? So that was the 4G technology. So it's ongoing, and now this has led to the development of discussion and development on 5G now, right? So 2020 onwards, some countries have already introduced the 5G technology. So India is still is in the discussion phase. But the discussion is at the final stages now. So I think the 5G would be introduced very soon in India as well, right? Now, how is 5G different from 4G? Okay, so here it's not just mobile broadband, as I mentioned, right? You also have to cater to machine-to-machine connections, right? Now, if you see here in 3G, we are talking about data rates of the order of kbps, right? So now in LTE, we are talking about data rates of the order of mbps, right? But in 5G, we need data rates of the order of 20 Gbps. So that's the kind of specification that is set for 5G, or rather challenge set for 5G. And it's not just the data rate. So you need low latencies as well. So at the same time, reliability should be high. High capacity is what we are looking for. And the availability, right? It should be really high, right? So you are talking about large number of base stations, right, and so on, right? So this is actually 5G technology. So if I want to summarize the specifications, there's something known as the A specification requirements for 5G, right? So again, so data rate, we are talking about Gbps now. Then there are latencies of the order of 1 millisecond, right? So certain machine-to-machine applications will require latencies of this order, right? I'll show in a moment, right? What kind of applications that I'm talking about, right? And so you need very high bandwidth, 1,000 times more than what we have now. So that's what we are talking about, right? And the number of devices are going to be connected, or number of devices that this 5G can support should be 100 times more than what we are seeing in the present day context, right? And so on. So if you see, so we are now talking about almost 100% coverage, right? Anywhere across the globe. Of course, in the population is what we are talking about, right? So these are some of the very stringent specifications that has been set by essentially ITU, International Telecommunication. So there is a group actually. So so they set all these specifications. Okay, right. So now, why these specifications? Data rates is something we can understand. So why latency also, right? So let's have a look at the kind of applications, or actually known as the usage scenarios that 5G should cater to, right? So so there are actually different facets to this 5G. So it's one is the existing mobile broadband, but we need enhanced mobile broadband, right? Because we are talking about Gbps now, right? So the existing broadband will remain, but with more data rates, right? So that means newer applications in that direction, right? See 3D video, virtual reality, augmented reality, it's called as, okay? So all these comes under this enhanced mobile broadband. On the other extreme, we should also, this 5G should be able to support applications that require massive M2M communication, right? So massive mission type communication. So this is particularly true in the context of smart cities, right? So Tirupati is is declared as one of the smart cities, right? So that means now we should talk about traffic signal lights being connected to the cloud, right? And to some control center, right? So decision happening in an online fashion and so on, right? So that means we are talking about a lot of devices, right? So this is one example. Now, another example is a range of applications where you need very low latencies, right? Low latency communication. So particularly if you're talking about smart cars, right? Self-driving cars, or even in the case of smart healthcare or remote surgeries, right? So latencies should be really low, right? Because critical decisions have to be taken. Suppose the cloud decides that the car has to put a brake, right? So that has to be communicated to the car very quickly, right? And also the communication from the adjacent vehicles should reach a particular car at without much delay, right? So we are talking about milliseconds kind of latency here, right? So you see there are a lot of applications, wide range of applications that 5G should cater to, right? So if I want to summarize, so this 5G, so it kind of envisions to connect virtually everyone and everything. So everyone through smartphones and some smart devices, right? So they're already smart watches you're talking about, right? Smart healthcare. So they're going to be health monitors and so on, right? So virtually everyone and everything together, right? So including machines, objects, and devices, right? So that's the idea for the future, right? So these are some typical examples or usage scenarios for 5G. And now, so these three usage scenarios, so to show that how vastly different they are, right? So here is the diagram to understand. So there are 8 different vertices here, you see. So each one represents one requirement, right? So data rate, traffic capacity, connection density, so latency, mobility, and so on, right? And now these inner circles represent what kind of application demand, what kind of priority for each of these specifications, right? It can be low, medium, or high, okay? So if you see enhanced broadband, so you need a high data rate, okay? User experience of data rate should be high. So this is essentially the user experience throughput, okay? Spectral efficiency is high. Mobility, right? So people are all on the move, so mobility is high. And then latency is medium requirement, okay? So even suppose you are doing live streaming, suppose there is a delay of few seconds, it's okay, okay? You don't mind actually, right? So if you are watching a live sport, so even if the score is updated in few seconds of delay, it doesn't matter. Okay, it can be buffered and played back to you, so that's okay, right? So connection density also is a medium requirement, right? So on the other hand, you can look at these other applications, the low latency applications, right? So on the move, yes, smart cars or self-driven cars, mobility is a key factor. Latency is extremely important here, right? But rest of the specifications, if you see, the requirement is low on the other. So the other specifications, the requirement is low. Similarly, right? So massive mission type communication, so the requirements are different. So this is what makes 5G more challenging. So you have to, it has to support different applications where the requirements are different, right? Right. So yeah, so with that introduction about all the specifications, so let's also enter into some technical specifications of 5G. Okay. So if you look at the radio frequencies that we are talking about for 5G, right? So essentially 2 bands have been enabled. One is the sub-gigahertz band. So LTE, if you look at LTE, so they are operating in megahertz, right? Something of the order of 900 megahertz and so on. Now the gigahertz band, we are entering the gigahertz band. So this is known as the sub-gigahertz. And one more very important thing is this millimeter wave band has been enabled, which is greater than 24 gigahertz, right? And this is mainly for the machine-to-machine type communication. Reason is at high frequencies, so your range is going to be small. Okay, once you need point-to-point communication mostly, right? So in that context, so this will now we will be introducing micro cells and pico cells, right? For instance, there may be a base station in an office setting. Okay, so we can think about base station installed in a mall, right? Or in an industry for essentially industry automation and so on, right? So these are the frequency bands, right? And one very important way through which high data rates are going to be achieved is through massive MIMO. Okay, so this is an antenna technology. So in addition to frequency and time, right, spacing, so we also talk about the physical spatial dimension, right, for increasing the spectral efficiency, right? So this will give additional degrees of freedom to get more efficiency, right? So in fact, Nokia is talking about, of course, in academic setting, there are a lot of research going on in this context. But on a practical setting, Nokia is talking about a 64 cross 64 antenna system, right? So devices will have 64 transmit antennas and receiver end also 64 receive antenna, right? And they show that there is a 5-fold increase in capacity, right? Once you start increasing the number of antennas. Okay, so see, time and frequency dimensions have been thoroughly investigated. The capacity has been squeezed out of time and frequency. Okay, we are very close to capacity. So one dimension is through massive MIMO. So that's being exploited in 5G. Okay. So when it comes to multiplexing technique, so we are going to borrow this very well proven OFDMA technique from LTE, right? So orthogonal frequency division. So in addition to that, so NOMA, non-orthogonal multiple access, so more like point-to-point, and this is mainly for this machine type communication and to some extent low latency. So of course, low latency requires OFDM as well, right? Right. And then one more key factor, which is already enabled for LTE, but for 5G they want to make it mandatory, is to allow the operators to start operating in the unlicensed spectrum as well, right? So particularly in the 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi band, right? So Wi-Fi is there, but it's not, so it's there at some places, but not everywhere, right? So wherever Wi-Fi is not available, or we'll see, even if Wi-Fi is available, if operators can cleverly use this unlicensed spectrum, so that's going to be a major advantage in increasing or supporting the throughput of the future. Okay, right. So in this talk, I'm mostly interested in this OFDMA technique and also how to extend it into the unlicensed spectrum. Okay, so that's the that's what we'll look into. Right. So let's quickly discuss about the OFDMA technique. Okay. So this is at a very basic level. So just to set up the context actually, because we are going to talk about the MAC for the Wi-Fi as well, right? So just to compare and contrast between these two technologies, so I'll talk about the MAC. Okay. So right. So before going to OFDMA, so let's look at the very preliminary techniques, right? So we started with TDMA, time division multiple access. So very straightforward. So this is the time axis and this is the frequency axis. And suppose you were 4 users, so you make the time into blocks and give the entire bandwidth for user in that specific time, right? So your time slot, so slot 1 is allotted to user 1, then 2, 3, 4, and again user 1 will repeat and this goes on, right? So this is one way of sharing the bandwidth available among 4 users. Okay. Then frequency division multiple access, right? What it does is, instead of sitting along the time, you partition the frequency band, available band, into different slots and allocate each slot to each of these users. And each user can seamlessly transmit continuously at all times. Okay. Although he gets a lower bandwidth, right? And of course, in when you are doing a frequency division, So you have to give a small amount of guard band. It cannot be continuous, right? So theoretically continuous is okay, but practical setting, some energy spillage will be there, right? So you have to take care by giving a small amount of guard band. Right. So what is limitations actually? So this is not suitable for wireless scenario, essentially because the inefficient utilization of resources, right? Why? Because suppose one of the user leaves the system, suppose he ends a call or he stops his browsing, right? So now this slot has been left vacant, and again one scheduling mechanism has to come to fill up this particular slot, right? So that's the key limitation. So to overcome this limitation, so then CDMA came. Yeah, please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, no, just sorry to interrupt. One of the audience is raising his hand for a question. Can I allow him to interact with you?
Yeah, please, yes.
Yes, please, Kura, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, please go
Are you
ahead.
able to hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sir, yes, sir. You said that we can use in OFDM. My research is also on spectrum sensing, sir.
Okay.
Sir, in 5G, they are using NOMA and remaining modulation techniques, no, sir?
Yeah, right.
Sir, my question is here, in OFDM, while using OFDM, PAPR is the major problem.
Okay.
Sir, in uplink, we are going to use SCFDMA, whereas we are SCFDMA is the good technique to reduce PAPR.
Right.
But why we go for other techniques to reduce PAPR, sir?
Why we don't go? Sorry.
Why we go? That means instead of having SCFDMA, SCFDMA is used only in uplink.
Right. Okay.
My question is why many other techniques like selective method techniques and partial transmit sequence method technique or clipping method techniques is used to reduce PAPR.
Okay. So that actually takes into the physical layer aspect actually. To be honest, no, so I'm not much aware of the physical layer, the reasons as to why at the physical layer level. Okay, so I'm mostly at the networking layer. So I can come back to this perhaps after a while. Okay, so yeah.
Okay, sir, no problem.
So you'll see actually after a while you'll see. So I'm actually at a networking layer. I'll discuss few things, right? So even this NOMA technology also, very basic. I know about NOMA.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll set up the context in a while.
Okay. No problem.
So that's a good question, but mostly it's at the physical layer. Okay. So I'll come back to that. So we'll that's at a physical layer. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll come back
to
that. Yeah.
That is related to physical layer.
Yeah, I understand. So you're a physical layer person. Once you talk about PAPR itself, I could sense actually that thing. Yeah, but I am at a network layer. We'll address some network layer issues. So this part we'll have a discussion actually. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Thanks for the question. Okay. Yeah. Right. So let me proceed. So we'll take up the discussion of that physical layer aspect. So in fact, perhaps Dr. Neelakantan is more into physical layer, will be able to address also. So we'll come back to those queries. Okay, so in a while. Right. So media, so I've been discussing about this MAC technique, no, multiple access control. So CDMA is one more technique actually, so which was introduced. So time and frequency, all users can use all time and at all time and transmit in all frequencies. So they'll be given a secret code actually using which a specific receiver can decode. So this is actually was very predominant as I told, no, but limitation was there's a degradation in performance. It cannot support large number of users, but CDMA is very good for privacy purposes. Okay, so it's still extensively used in military communication. So again, so I'm only discussing at a networking layer, so I'm not going into the details of this particular technology. my idea was to set up the context for OFDMA, right? So if you see, OFDM is the modulation technique, okay? Whereas wherein even within slots you can use BPSK, QPSK, and so on, right? But OFDMA, once you put in the A, it becomes a multiple access technique, okay? So this comes at the network layer, right? So here there is a cyclic prefix, everything. But at network layer, I will kind of abstract it out all. And I'll essentially look at OFDMA as allotting time frequency blocks to each of the users, right? So you see, to each user, now I can assign any time and frequency blocks, right? And users can start transmitting in those blocks. And again, it need not be continuous. So it can be an arbitrary assignment also, right? So, but of course, so whenever there is continuity possible, so it will be assigned in that fashion. And the advantage is, suppose a user leaves the system or ends his call or browsing, right? So now you can fill in with other users as well, right? So now one question is, why can't we do the same thing for TDMA? If one of the user leaves, why can't you assign it to some other users? Okay. But the major drawback here is so people from physical layer will understand. So multipath fading, right? So in wireless scenario, right? So suppose in a particular time or in a particular frequency or for a particular frequency band goes into fading, then that entire big chunk of time slot is wasted, or big chunk of frequency is wasted, right? So that particular user will not receive anything during that slot. And also it's an unfair kind of, you see, a big chunk is given to user one here, right? So it's not fair when it comes to user throughput, right? So to overcome such a thing, no, in OFDMA, so you can, so OFDMA will enable you to do the allocation in a much fair manner, okay? And also if a particular frequency and time goes into fading, so all users are affected, but only some chunks of these time frequency blocks will be affected, right? So in that context, so that's the reason why OFDMA is more preferable, right? Okay, so now, so that was about the 5G, right? And so now, so let me proceed to 4G, right? So sorry, let me proceed to talk about Wi-Fi, right? So because we are interested in coexistence of 5G and Wi-Fi, right? So I'll also briefly talk about the unlicensed band and Wi-Fi, okay? Right. So what is the unlicensed spectrum? Okay, so essentially, so if you see, no, so licensing is very critical to limit interference, right, in many applications. So, so mobile cellular, right? So each operator is going to buy a particular frequency and start transmitting, right? So suppose if Airtel operator has purchased a frequency band, so Jio is not allowed to transmit on that frequency in that particular region, okay? So, so that's why spectrum auctioning is a very critical issue, and it's more expensive than real estate, okay? So spectrum doesn't come for cheap, okay? So now, so there are TV transmissions, FM transmissions, so these are all owned by a particular or leased, okay, so to a particular operator. Okay? Similarly, air traffic control, right? So you are not allowed to transmit, right, in these bands, right? So these are all licensed bands, right? As I told, no, so it has to be purchased, and it's more expensive than real estate, okay? And also it's going to be, so it's an offense to transmit in a licensed band. So you cannot just build your transmitter and start transmitting in the licensed band, okay? And even in some case, even you cannot build a receiver also, right? So that's considered illegal, right? So particularly in the military band. Of course, it's going to be coded, but still even receiving is considered illegal, okay? Right, so for many other applications, so licensing is not going to be practical, right? So particularly for short range applications, right? So for instance, your wireless mouse and PC is connected through Bluetooth. You are not going to pay for that band, right? So already in the device cost, it's incorporated. You can just go ahead and start using your mouse. So someone else comes in close proximity, so there's a way to be resolved. So there's an algorithm to resolve that, and so you'll just go ahead and start using. Okay. So similarly, many short range applications, so licensing is not required. So even for some long range applications, so some senior people may know about these things. Amateur radio, okay, very popular during the 90s also, right? So ham radio. So essentially you communicate so very small bandwidth, right? So you'll communicate using these Morse code, okay? Very small in kilohertz. Even the bandwidth also is very small, right? So now one key thing is for the ISM band, which is essentially known as the industrial, scientific, and medicinal band. So these also, the spectrum is also unlicensed here, so that research activity can happen in these bands. Okay. So Wi-Fi comes under this ISM, right? And now it's predominantly deployed here, right? So it's gone through the research phase, and now development is over, and it's in the deployment phase. Okay. So Wi-Fi essentially originally it was in the 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz band, and so many frequency bands are there. Essentially 20 megahertz generally. Okay. So more than this table, so let's look at this picture, so more illustrative actually. So you see there are 14 bands in the 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz, and at any point of time, so there are actually 3 non-overlapping channels. Okay. So this is how the bands have been allocated, and whenever you switch on your Wi-Fi access point, so there's an algorithm to pick one of the bands, and it will start operating in that band. And your laptop or mobile phone there'll be initial control messages going on, and they will click on to one of the bands to that access point. They'll start communicating to that access point using one of these bands. Okay, right. And now recently, even for Wi-Fi, so 5 gigahertz band also was opened for Wi-Fi. So if you see recent Wi-Fi deployments, right, even in your office setting or in the institute setting, so you will see actually, for instance, IIT 2.4 gigahertz, IIT 5 gigahertz. Essentially, these are different access points which are operating at these different frequencies. It will enable for more access points in a given area and more number of Wi-Fi users in a given area. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay. So I did not show the Cisco report. So there are a lot of advancements in Wi-Fi technology also. So it also is going to coexist along with 5G in future, right? For instance, I'm talking about public Wi-Fi. For instance, Google perhaps has already installed Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, right? In maybe shopping malls, railway stations, and so on. Okay? So both these technologies are going to coexist in the future. Right. So, but what is the challenge with Wi-Fi is that the users come and go. So you cannot talk about any central control here, unlike the cellular technology, where you will have a base station. Okay. So here there is going to be you cannot talk about a central control. So all these schemes are ruled out. This requires a strong coordination between the user equipment and the cellular base station. Okay. So that rules out all these multiple access schemes, right? So you need to come up with a different scheme. And the scheme for Wi-Fi is CSMA. Okay. So carrier sense multiple access. Okay. So way it operates is like this. So I don't want to spend too much time here, but very quickly I'll go take you through these things. Okay. See the way how Wi-Fi works. Suppose there are 4 users, right? You cannot transmit simultaneously, right? So so think of the current setting, right? So in this presentation, so everyone cannot go simultaneously, right? So if someone has a query, so you have to raise a hand, okay? And then once 2 among the audience, suppose 2 or 3 audience raise their hand simultaneously, so someone has to break the contention, right? So you have to make them go one after the other. So the way Wi-Fi does that is using randomness. Okay. So what you do is, see, at this point, suppose several users, right? So a successful transmission has ended. Now all users will not see, there are different. Think of these as different smartphones, right? You have some data to transmit, but you will not transmit immediately. You will wait for some time, right? And what you will do is, again, after waiting for some time, right? So you are, anyone who has a data to send is going to transmit something known as a request to send packet. Okay. So the request to send packet has to be picked up by the access point. And again, there is a small amount of silence. Okay. So it's known as the short interface spacing. So after that, the Wi-Fi access point is going to respond with a CTS signal, which is known as the clear to send signal. Okay. So once after CTS, again there is a small amount of silence. So this essentially, if you see, this is known as handshaking, right? So you have to, before two people start talking, so they handshake, saying that, okay, I'm willing to listen to you. Okay. So this is known as the handshaking in the Wi-Fi technology. Okay. So then the data is transmitted. The data transmission is using OFDM. Okay. And after that, an acknowledgement packet is received. And so this packet transmission has been successful now. And so same thing. So this is going to proceed now. For instance, if you see this diagram, user 4 has something to transmit. So after a successful transmission, so everyone will wait for some amount of time. Okay. And this goes on, right? And at some point in time, suppose two of them transmit the RTS signal at the same time, right? So both want to transmit at the same time. You cannot do that, right? So there is only a 20 megahertz band for transmission, and two transmissions cannot happen simultaneously, right? On the same band. Okay. So they collide, and then once they collide, what they do is, again they go back and wait for random amount of time. Okay. So this randomness is what allows the Wi-Fi to resolve multiple access. Okay, right. So now, so once the RTS signal is transmitted, so once there is a collision, right? So then, so again the process continues. Okay, so this is how the Wi-Fi works. Okay, so these are some typical parameters. So I'll not go into this, but essentially the point I want to make is the following. Okay. So Wi-Fi uses a contention-based MAC. Okay, it is something like this. Whereas cellular technology or 5G is going to use a schedule-based MAC, which requires a central control. So the challenge is, how can 5G and Wi-Fi coexist in the same band? Okay, so this is the challenge we want to address. Okay, but not at a physical layer. So I'll show you. So we are going to address this at a networking layer. Okay. Right. So so let me quickly talk about one very simple technique to achieve coexistence between cellular and Wi-Fi. Okay. So this was originally proposed for LTE, but it is very well applicable to 5G as well. Okay. So what happens is the following. So what the cellular base station does is, it's going to divide time into some frames and subframes, right? So this is essentially like a time division fashion. So what the cellular base station does is, it's going to allocate some number of subframes to Wi-Fi. Okay. What it does is, so the cellular technology or the 5G is going to transmit during these times, right? Whenever transmission is happening, Wi-Fi algorithm is such that whenever there is energy in that particular band, the Wi-Fi is going to just listen. Okay, it will enter the listen mode, right? So it will detect energy in the band, so it will enter the listen mode. Okay. Once the channel becomes free, once the energy is only if there is noise here, so that means Wi-Fi knows that no other transmission is going on. So it can, the Wi-Fi network will use this particular band or this particular time slot for its transmission. And again, the cellular technology will start transmitting here. So there could be some collision with the Wi-Fi here. But once there is energy in the band, the Wi-Fi will again go to silent mode. Okay. So if you see now, the control is with the cellular technology, and you don't need any modification from the Wi-Fi end, right? So if the cellular operators are enabled to operate in this fashion in the unlicensed band, so then now it's on the cellular operator to make sure that they give sufficient block for the Wi-Fi transmissions also, right? So if they operate completely, okay, it's going to be unfair to the Wi-Fi, right? So Wi-Fi users will not get any throughput. On the other hand, if the cellular technology gives a lot of blocks to Wi-Fi, right? Then the 5G operator cannot get any throughput in the unlicensed band, right? So the entire purpose of making use of unlicensed band along with the licensed band, right? So the operator will continue transmitting in the licensed band as well, right? But they can get additional benefit by transmitting in the unlicensed band also, okay? So now there's a trade-off between these two, right? So we want to model trade-offs of this fashion, okay? So these couple of slides are about how the throughput of Wi-Fi is going to get affected once the operator, once an operator starts transmitting, right? So once the large number of LTE, right? So you see the throughput of Wi-Fi will start decreasing, okay? So from this point, so the throughput drastically reduces, right, of Wi-Fi. Okay, so this is, let me not go into detail, but I guess the point I want to make is how should the operator allot blocks to the Wi-Fi, right? Too many blocks, LTE cannot, LTE or 5G cannot make use of the unlicensed spectrum. Too little blocks, Wi-Fi users will not get any throughput. Okay, so this is what is the challenge. Okay, right. So this is exactly what I want to make use. So I want to emphasize the Wi-Fi throughput reduces, so it's unfair. So we want to address this unfairness also. Okay, right. So now, if you want to allow cellular and Wi-Fi to operate in the same band, or the cellular operator to use the unlicensed band, so we should propose schemes which will ensure that the coexistence is in a fair manner. Okay, so here the solution is optimal. We are talking about optimal airtime, right? So we have to use optimization framework here. Now, when multiple operators are there, like Jio and Airtel, right? So each one is concerned about their own profit. Okay, so they're not going to worry about the profit or losses of the other operator. Okay, so such competitive scenario is modeled using a game theoretic framework. Okay, so we propose a game theoretic framework here, and here we have to talk about the solution is not about optimality. So we have to talk about Nash equilibrium solutions. Okay, so that's something I'm going to talk about as well. And again, as I told you, only if time permits, I'll come to this part, which is essentially about Q learning. What happens in long term? Okay, so over long time, the cellular operators have to learn about the behavior of Wi-Fi, right? And then you have to propose some solutions here, right? So these are something to do with learning algorithms. So only if time permits, I'll talk, but mostly we'll talk about Nash equilibrium solution, and we'll have some discussion at that point. Okay, right. So I think this is the right time to take a small pause, and I can take up some queries related to the earlier thing. Okay, so yeah, we can take 1 or 2 minutes pause here. Okay, so please, any queries, please, you can shoot to me now. Yeah.
Yeah, so participants, if you have any questions, please raise your hand, else the speaker can go ahead with the other topics. Yes, Dr. Naveen, I think we can continue.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So let me just a second. So I'll just start actually.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me get started with this mathematical modeling techniques now. So now here you will start seeing the kind of problems we address at the network layer, right? So in communication, so it's very vast actually. So different layerings are there. People working in this area, you will know already, right? So there's physical layer, starting from physical layer. So, and if you see, I've been talking about MAC layer, medium access control, right? So this comes under the purview of network layer researchers, right? So I'm going to talk, and then there are session layer and application layer, mostly goes to computer science, okay? So I'm going to essentially talk about MAC layer issues, right? So we'll start with a very simple setup, okay? So this joint work with my BTech project student Chaitanya, right? So he's currently working at IBM Research Labs in Hyderabad, right? So I'll talk about the setting. So there is one, let's say one 5G base station. So it could be a picocell installed in a shopping mall. And let's say there is one Wi-Fi access point. So although I'm calling it as one access point, it could be a network of Wi-Fi access points, okay? But just one access point owned by someone like Google, suppose, okay? So this is, let's say this is owned by some operator like Jio, okay, and so on, right? And now, what is the problem that we are trying to address here, right? So now this is the time axis, okay? Think of this as one big slot, okay, which is of duration T, and it's going to repeat after that, okay? So this is of, let's say, hundreds of milliseconds. See, in the context of communication, so millisecond, 100 millisecond is a huge time, okay? So I'm talking about something because a lot of data can be transmitted in milliseconds, okay? So, so this is the time frame, length of the frame, okay? Now, so let's say beta is the fraction of time within this frame time allocated to 5G, right? So 5G decides to transmit in this time, right? So I'm calling this as, so that means, so beta is like a fraction, let's say 50% or 70%, okay? So then 0.7 into T is the total time allocated to the cellular operator, okay? Cellular operator is going to, 5G operator is going to transmit in this time. And the remaining 30%, right, is allocated to Wi-Fi. So, what happens is at this point, the 5G operator will stop transmission, right? And Wi-Fi will detect that there is no transmission, and Wi-Fi will start its own RTS, CTS mechanism, and it will start transmitting. Okay. And during this time, see, when 5G is transmitting, Wi-Fi doesn't know. See, Wi-Fi only detects energy. Wi-Fi doesn't know who is transmitting. Okay. So whenever transmission is happening, Wi-Fi is designed to stay quiet. Okay. So that's the Wi-Fi technology itself, right? Right. So now, so beta T, I'll call this as the 5G on time. So that means 1 minus beta times T is the 5G off time. Okay. Now, it's a very simple model, right? So you see, now what I'm trying to solve is I want to find a beta star. What is the beta that the 5G operator should use, right? Very simple problem. One LTE, one Wi-Fi, okay? But if you see in a real practical context, we will have a network of LTE and network of Wi-Fi access points, right? It sounds like a toy model, correct? Now, so here is where I'll emphasize. So many of you are academicians, right? So faculty in universities, institutes, right? So I'll tell you how academics can contribute in this context, okay? So particularly in the area of communication, if you see, So lot of advancements are happening from the industry end. Okay, so industry have the facilities, right? So invest lot of money, so you have a lot of facilities, so they can build powerful base stations and so on. Whereas academics, to that extent, and moreover, they have a lot of engineers who are dedicated for that purpose, right? So you can develop a lot of standards can be materialized at industry, right? So I want to motivate how academics can contribute to communication research, right? So generally, research in communication will easily be 5 to 10 years ahead of what is happening in industry, right? So there'll be some mismatch when you speak with industry and academia, right? But that the gap is reducing, particularly because currently, like even Dr. Neelakantan would know, IIT Madras is doing a lot of activities. IIT Madras, IIT Hyderabad, no, a lot of activities are going on the 5G front. Okay, so that gap is reducing. But at a network layer, so I'll tell you how academics can contribute. So what this is an excerpt, this is something, call for papers, you know, right? So this is from this very famous conference, international conference on communication. So call for paper in the area of mobile and wireless symposium. So I want to emphasize this, highlight this particular point, right? So what they look for, novel technical studies as well as broader the position and vision paper comprising hypothetical and speculative scenarios covering mobility and wireless issues, right? So we are talking about such scenarios, right? And which the industry may not have thought about such scenarios, right? So eventually the challenge is to build a protocol, everything, but we are going to envision such scenarios and propose solutions for such scenarios, right? So these are small things. I wanted to deviate and emphasize this because being an FDP, I know a lot of faculty, sometimes they'll be hesitant to think about small problems. They may think, okay, industry is working on bigger problems. How can this be a contribution? But even small, very interesting problems which the industry has not thought about, okay, so is welcomed, right? So those are novel contributions. Okay, so that's where I wanted to talk about this particular call for paper. Okay, right. So let's proceed. Right. So this is a very simple model here. Right. So let's see how we can talk about finding. So objective is to find this beta. Okay. So towards this direction, so I'm going to introduce something known as the utility and cost function, right? So if you want to maximize something, so you should know what function you are trying to maximize, right? That's how the mathematics work, right? So now it's with us to identify some reasonable utility and cost function, right? So I'll call this U as the utility of the Wi-Fi base station. So if I set some beta, okay, so if it is 0.5, so you get some utility. If it is 0.7, you'll get a higher utility and so on. So similarly, there is a cost function with Wi-Fi, right? See, if beta is 100%, you will get the highest utility, right? Because what does 100% mean? This entire frame, the Wi-Fi 5G users, okay? But if you set 100%, Wi-Fi is not getting anything. The cost is going to be very high. So I'm going to capture such a model using such a scenario using a cost function. So on the other hand, suppose beta is 0. Let's look at this. When beta is 0, so the 5G base station is not at all transmitting on the unlicensed band. Okay. So its utility is going to be 0. It doesn't fetch any utility. Whereas the cost for Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi will get the entire band. Okay. So Wi-Fi is not losing anything. So there's no cost for Wi-Fi. Okay? So you see there is a conflicting interest here of 5G and Wi-Fi, right? So I'm trying to capture that using utility and cost function. Okay. So here are some simple example utility and cost function. Okay. So log utility. So anyone working in the area of network, you'll see that log utility is very popular. And so people working in physical layer will understand why log utility. So log of 1 plus SNR, right? So the Shannon's capacity formula, if you recall. So that's where the log utilities come from. Okay. So suppose what is beta times t is the time allotted to LTE, okay, time allotted to 5G, and let's say RL is the rate that the 5G is going to achieve in this time, right? So this is like the total rate that the 5G base station can achieve, and log of that is like the capacity. So it makes sense for this utility function. So then for the cost function, I'm using a simple quadratic cost here. So there's some justification. It comes from the contention mechanism of the Wi-Fi, but let's not worry about justification at this stage. We are trying to formulate a mathematical problem here. Okay, so this is the cost, right? So generally, what happens? See, utility. What happens is the utility is going to increase as I'm going to increase this beta, and it's going to saturate at some point. Okay. So similarly, what happens to the Wi-Fi, cost of the Wi-Fi? Okay. Initially, the cost is 0, but as I'm going to increase the airtime, means I'm giving more and more time to Wi-Fi, to 5G, the cost seen as from the Wi-Fi access point is going to increase. Okay. So these are utility and cost functions behave. Okay. The simple utility and cost function I have talked about. And just a point I want to make is you will see LTE. So LTE and 5G are interchangeable because this research was perhaps last year. So essentially we are proposing for 5G, for LTE technology, but this can be extended to 5G. So that's where I'll be interchangeably calling using 5G and LTE. Okay, right. So now, right. So one point I want to make before proceeding further. So why is utility of this form, and why is cost of this form? So this is very interesting observation, right? So it comes from economics, right? It is known as law of diminishing returns, right? So I'm not going to details of these things. There's something known as the concave, right? Concave and convex functions. So I'll not talk about that. So what I'll talk about this one, right? So why an utility always saturates after some point? Okay. So let me take a very simple real life example. Okay. Right. So suppose you don't have internet, and suddenly when the second generation came or third generation came, we are getting kbps of bandwidth, right? So from 0, I got some amount of bandwidth. Okay. And it was a huge achievement at that time. If you see, once using that very basic version of phones, where I was browsing some, I was able to check emails, right? So suddenly, so you think of this as your satisfaction level, okay? So your satisfaction increases by a huge amount, right? So you see, from 0, I went to 0.2, a huge increase in my happiness or satisfaction level, okay? Now we are talking about, you see, suppose now I have 20 Mbps, right? And if I increase it by marginal 1 Mbps more, 20 to 21 Mbps, so you see the amount of increase is going to be minimal, okay? So this comes from economic theory, and it also comes from human behavior, right? So just to take another example, they're very interesting from economic point of view, right? So one of my research area is also network economics. So we investigate behavior of this fashion, right? So if you see, so suppose someone has 0 rupees, okay? So you give him 1,000 rupees, right? So amount of satisfaction, or so he's very happy, okay? So someone has already 1 lakh, suppose, right? So you give him 1,000 rupees more. No one will say no to money, right? So he's going to accept, right? He's happy, but not by that much, right? So this is a very interesting way in which utility works. Okay, so that's why utility is always modeled using functions of this form. Okay, so log is one such function. So there are other functions also. For instance, square root of beta, right? Square root of x. So it's going to be of this form, right? So the point is, it's going to go and saturate after some amount of time, right? So that's about utility. So if we talk about the cost, right? So cost will just shoot up. Cost is always going to increase. There's no stop. It will go and saturate at infinity only, right? So cost always works in that fashion, right? So again, let me give you a very interesting example from economics to understand why cost behaves in this fashion. Okay. So now, suppose you board a train, right? And let's say you're going long distance train travel. Okay. So first 1 hour, see, any travel, there is a discomfort associated with it, right? So first 1 hour, some amount of discomfort is there, but it's not too much, right? Now, suppose you have already traveled for 12 hours, right? Very close to your destination, but have you ever experienced that last 1 hour is always very painful? It looks like really long time compared with the first 1 hour, right? So the last 1 hour, right, or once you are already incurred some amount of cost, the last right increment, you see the cost will really shoot up. Okay. So these are very interesting observations from economics, so that we are going to apply, right? So cost we are going to model as a convex function, right? So you see concave utilities and convex cost, right? So once we apply this to our particular scenario, we have a simple problem of this form now. Okay, we want to maximize utility and negative of the cost. Okay. Now, as I increase beta, utility is going to increase, cost is also increased, but I'm putting a negative sign here, right? So that means this point is going to decrease. So something is increasing and somewhere it's decreasing. So you have a very interesting problem here, right? So you have a very interesting maximization problem. So objective is to find a beta. Okay. So suppose these are my utility and cost functions. Right, so you have, if I talk about net utility, okay, so I'm calling this as the net utility. So it's a function of this form, and somewhere there is a beta star. So this is a very simple example here, right? So you're able to easily differentiate, apply first order condition, and find a beta star very easily. Okay. Now, for this particular example, so beta star is 0.22. That means 22% of time you have to allocate for the 5G base station in a particular frame, and the remaining 70%, 78% of time should be left for Wi-Fi. Okay. Now, so that was a very simple example, right? So we are using, it was very easy, but not always you will be able to solve it by hand, right? So there's something known as the CVX package in MATLAB to solve problems of that nature. Okay, right. So I'll spend some amount of time on understanding this CVX solver. Okay. So what is CVX? Okay. So if time permits, I'll take you to MATLAB also. Right. So it's essentially a modeling system. So it's implemented in MATLAB. So it's for constructing and solving something known as convex programs, disciplined convex programs. So this CVX package was developed by Stanford. I think the group of Professor Stephen Boyd, right? So they have they are the ones who have developed this CVX package. So it's available for free download and installation. Okay, so it's for solving problems of this nature. Okay, and this is not just for the 5G and Wi-Fi problem that I'm talking about. So other faculty members know, so you would have come across problems of this nature in your research problem, irrespective of what field you are working in, not only communications, right? So even in other areas also, so you will come across solving problems of this nature, right? So minimize some function subject to some constraints. Okay. Okay. So now, so all these functions are supposed to be convex and concave. But in the interest of time, so I'll not talk about this part, right? So what is a convex function? What is concave function? So I already intuitively talked about those things. So let me not take you through these algebra. Finally, I'm going to show you some references from where you can talk about, from where you can read this material. It's not very difficult. But let me not go through these things in the interest of time. So I already talked about this thing, right? So Wi-Fi, the cost function is going to be convex. Okay. So I'll not talk about these things. So let's skip this part. Okay. So CVX is essentially a programming paradigm, okay, which can enable you to solve problems of this nature. Okay? So you have a problem of this nature. So here is the syntax for solving such problems. Okay. So CVX setup. Okay. So this is a command actually, and then you have to write your code between these two commands, CVX begin. So these are all keywords, CVX begin and CVX end. Okay. And so there is a variable. So variable X I am introduced. So these are all keywords, right? So it's self-explanatory. So minimize F0 of X subject to these constraints. Okay. So I'll show you an example also. Okay. So let's for this particular example. Okay. So maximize. So you have a problem of this nature. So we have this CVX command, right? So CVX setup, and then you will write you can write a code of this problem. Okay. So I'll come to that. I'll come to the CVX part in a moment. But let me complicate the problem slightly. Okay. So what I will do is, suppose instead of one Wi-Fi access point or one 5G base station, suppose there are two base stations now, and let's say one 5G network. Right now, the challenge is not just to find a beta. So I want to find beta 1, beta 2. Right? What is beta 1? So this is the amount of time in the unlicensed band that is allocated for first 5G base station. So this is the amount of time allocated for second 5G base station, and the remaining time is left for the Wi-Fi access point for transmission. Okay, so you see now you have to find beta 1 star and beta 2 star. Okay, already from the toy problem we have moved to a more complex problem. Okay, now again I'm going to introduce the utility and cost functions. Okay, so if you see utility and cost functions, it just doesn't depend on beta 1, right? It is depends on both beta 1 and beta 2. Right. So now we have a problem of this form now. Now I want to maximize the utility of base station 1, utility of base station 2, and the cost of the Wi-Fi. Okay, negative cost. And these are all, now what are the variables? Beta 1 and beta 2. Okay. So this is what we have, beta 1 plus beta 1 and beta 2. But there is a third constraint here, right? Now, if I add beta 1 and beta 2, right, it should not be more than 100%, right? So I have one frame. So if this is 0.2, this should be less than equal to 0.8, right? So that is the amount of time available, right? So here is the third constraint I'm going to incorporate here. Beta 1 plus beta 2 less than equal to 1. Okay. Now, yeah, so I've introduced the utilities. Okay, so this is the overall problem that we have, right? So we can solve problems of this nature using the CVX package. Okay, so let me, let me take you to MATLAB a bit, and let's work out the details here. Okay, now. So I hope my screen is visible, right? So can Dr. Neelakantan, can you confirm? Can you confirm whether the MATLAB screen is visible?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay, fine. So now here is the code. Okay, so what I will do is, okay, let me put a checkpoint here, right? So let me take you to the code. So it's essentially for the same problem what we had earlier, right? So two base stations, right? So I'll just normalize the time frame. So let me show you the time frame also here, right? So this is the total time t, right? I just normalized it to 1. It could be 1 second or even 100 millisecond. I'll just normalize it to 1. Okay. So this is like a parameter here. So R1, R2, RW. So these are all some parameters. So I've just put an epsilon. This is not for now. So it will come for the game theory problem, right? And now, so we have this CVX begin and CVX end, you see. So CVX setup. So I'll show you also how CVX looks. Okay, so let me right. So so it's essentially, so you can browse for CVX in Google. So you'll have to download and it will come as a folder. You just save that folder, right? Wherever you're writing your MATLAB code, you can either save it here or your main MATLAB directory also you can save it. Okay. So I just saved it here, right? And then so there is a CVX setup you have to do, right? So now so CVX setup. Okay. So you need not worry what all these things are. So it is something to do with the package. Okay. So CVX setup. So it's going to do some operations in the background, right? And then so for the first time you need to do the CVX setup. So not every time. So once you do the CVX setup, so see CVX begin and CVX end. If you see, no. So I'm trying to introduce some variables, and this is my maximization problem. Okay. So you see log utility of user 1 or the cellular operator 1, utility of 5G cellular operator 2, which is essentially 5G base station. So this is the cost of the Wi-Fi, right? I'm assuming a quadratic cost, right? And I will put all the constraints here. Okay. The variable should be non-negative between 0 and 1. I've incorporated that here. Second variable also between 0 and 1, right? And here B1 plus B2. This is a fraction of time, right? B1 and B2 are fraction of time. Okay. Should be less than equal to 1. Okay. Right. So once I have all these things, and I'm trying to find the optimal B1 and optimal B2. So let me run this part of the code, right? So I'm running this. You can see the CVX runs. Okay. So, and now what is my B1? Okay. Yeah. So B underscore 1. So 0.81. So B underscore 2. 0.0325. Okay. And what is my V1 opt? Okay. Then V2 opt. And finally V opt. Okay. Right. So what does this say now? V1. It says in this time frame of duration 1 unit, allocate 18%, roughly 18% to base station 1, and just 3% to base station 2, and the remaining time to Wi-Fi. Okay. So this is the optimal allocation of airtime, right? So that's from the settings, right? Of course, if you change these numbers, so you are going to get different. You will see different. For instance, now you see B2 is only 3%, right? Let me make it 50, right? Or let me make it 30. Okay, let's run it again. So now, if I want to see B1, comma B2, okay. Now you see 13% allocation to base station 1, 14% to base station 2. Okay, you see that's how. So these are all subject to change. So based on these values, you can find out what is the optimal allocation rate. Okay, so we'll come back to this later also. So essentially, what we have solved is we have found out what is B1 star, B2 star for a given utility and cost function. Okay. This was about the optimization framework. But what is the limitations with the optimization framework? Okay. Essentially, the solution is centralized. Why? Because if someone has to compute this B1 and B2, right? So you need a third party to make sure that the base stations get to know what is the B1 to use and what is beta 2 to use. Okay. So this is going to be very intensive for large networks, right? And then also some kind of message passing is required to gather information. Okay. Because you need to know what are the utility functions of each of these base stations, right? And suppose one is operated by Jio and one is operated by Airtel, why will they share their information, right? So they will not share their information easily. Okay. So that's what I want to emphasize here. Operator may not be willing to share information. Okay. So in that sense, the optimal solution is not a rational solution. Okay. there may be incentive for some operators to deviate from the optimal solution. Okay? So now, once these operators are competitive, okay, they belong to different service providers, then the solution we have to talk about is using the framework of game theory, where the solution is characterized in terms of Nash equilibrium. Okay. For the remainder of let's say 15 minutes or so, okay. So I'll talk about the game theory solutions. Okay. Right. Yeah. So after talking about the game theory solution, perhaps I'll again show you the CVX solver, and with that, I'll end the presentation. Okay. So if there are any questions related to optimization model and CVX solver, we can take it here now. Very quickly, we can take it here because what is upcoming is going to be very interesting actually. Game theory, which is very useful these days in networks. Okay. So if there are any quick questions, we can take it up. Finally, also I will take up questions in detail. Yeah. So any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
So you can please raise your hand.
Yeah, Krishna, I think you raised your hand. I allowed your mic. You can clarify now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, sir, a small doubt, sir, regarding the coding.
Yes.
Sir, you are selecting the distance between the base station and the Wi-Fi node. Okay, so that was R1, R2. So the R1, R2, those parameters were related to the distance between the modules, sir, Wi-Fi and the.
Yes. Yeah. So indirectly, it is related to the distance between the seller users, between the operator and its user. So what is R1, R2? Not exactly directly distance. Okay. So this is actually the base rate. You can call it as the base rate. Okay. So here R1, think of it as 20 Mbps. This is the rate at which base station 1 can serve. If nothing else is there in the system, only that base station is there, it can provide a rate of 20 Mbps. Okay. And then R2 is like the raw capacity of that base station 2. So it can serve at 30 Mbps. So Wi-Fi can achieve a throughput of 50 Mbps. The Wi-Fi will get higher throughput because it's closer to the user equipment, right? So this is the rate or the throughput that the Wi-Fi can achieve, provided nothing else is in the system. What do I mean by nothing else? If only Wi-Fi is there, it can give a thing of 50 Mbps, right? Now, so these are R1 and R2, right? So
yeah, okay, sir. Thank you.
So it's not like the distance, but indirectly distance is required to compute R1 and R2. Right now, I'm just plugging it as input here. Okay. Yeah. So fine. Yeah. So we'll come back to the code again once I discuss about the game theory problem. Okay. Right. So let me go with the game theoretic solutions. So you can note down your question. So we'll come back to that. So this part I always like game theory. Okay. So very interesting, very useful these days in the networking context. Right. Some of you may already be familiar with the game theory. Maybe you have come across Nash equilibrium solutions and so on. Of course, I already given the int now. So how many of you know who this is, right? So who this is? So I'll give you a hint already. So of course, I've mentioned also. But if some of you have seen this movie, okay, so A Beautiful Mind. So this is about this movie is about Professor John Nash, right? So this is actual image. So this Dr. John Nash. So this is a person. So the movie Beautiful Mind is about Professor John Nash. So some of you might have seen. If you have not seen, please note it down. So very nice movie to watch actually. So very motivating. So Professor John Nash, the kind of struggles he went through. Okay, so amazing mathematician. Okay, so watch this movie. So similarly, there's another movie in this context I'll talk about. So this is about known as Imitation Game. Okay, so if people have not watched, very motivational movies, particularly for people in academics, we should watch these movies. So Imitation Game. So that's about another eminent computer scientist, Professor Alan Turing. Okay, so these are a couple of movies to not miss, right? Okay, so this is about Professor John Nash. So who was Professor John Nash? So he was actually one of the early researchers in the field of game theory, and he proposed a form of equilibrium in 1950s. Okay, and it's very popularly it's named after him, and it's known as the Nash equilibrium. And even to this day, it's used in variety of fields, okay, including wireless networks. Okay, and then so he won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 1994, and this was the citation. So for their pioneering analysis of equilibria in the theory of non-cooperative games. Okay. So I will introduce you to game theory. So for time being, we'll not worry about the 5G and Wi-Fi problem. So we'll see how that fits in our context in a while. Okay. But let's just study about game theory for the fun of it. Okay. Right. So what are the key ingredients in game theory? First, we should have a set of players, and there should be an action available for these players to exercise, and there should be some kind of utility or payoff function, right? So these are the key ingredients. So let's go through one or two very interesting problems, right? Very standard problems in game theory. So the first one I'm going to talk about is known as the prisoner's dilemma. Okay. So here is the setting. Suppose there are two suspects. Okay, so two suspects, right? So some crime has been committed. So police have nabbed or caught two suspects. Still, there is no enough evidence to say that the crime was committed by them, right? But there is not sufficient evidence, but enough evidence. Enough evidence to convict them of a minor offense, but not of the major crime, right? Unless one of them acts as a evidence or becomes a witness against the other. Okay? So both of them they're put in separate prisons, okay, and being interrogated. Okay. Now, if both can remain silent, if they remain silent, there is no evidence, so they're going to be convicted of a minor offense, and they're going to spend 1 year in prison. But if one and only one of them confesses, so he is a witness and he is going to be pardoned and set free, and the other other convict is going to be put in the prison, and he will spend 20 years in prison. Okay. Now, if both of them confess against each other, so there is evidence against each other, and each of them will spend 5 years in prison. And this is something which is told to the prisoner. They are put separately. Prisoners cannot communicate with each other. They are separately told that, see, if you are going to confess, say that the other person convicted the crime and act as a witness, you will go free. Otherwise, if he convicts, you have to spend 20 years in prison. Okay, right. So now, let's see. Let's try to capture the setting in the context of game theory. So now, who are the players? So these two prisoners are like the players for us. And what are the actions? The actions available are to confess to the crime or just stay silent. So these are the set of actions. And so what are the payoff functions? Okay. So for suspect 1, right? So I'm capturing payoff function using this notation U1. So see, he tries to confess. The suspect 2 remains silent. He has confessed, right? So he is set free, 0 years in prison. Here. Now both of them remain silent. They spend 1 year in prison and come out of the prison. Both of them confess. They are going to spend 5 years in prison. One of them, player 1 is going to remain silent. But now, suppose player 2 confesses, so this player has to, suspect has to spend 20 years in prison. Okay. So this is actually the utility or payoff function of user 1. Okay, I'm interchangeably using user, players, and prisoners. Okay. So this is common in game theory.
So the two prisoners know each other's decision?
Sorry, each other?
So these two prisoners, are they able to know others' decision about whether C or S?
No, they do not know.
They do not
know. So this is actually the this is the utility after they play the action,
Okay. Okay.
right? But they know these things. They know these numbers. So what they know, what user one knows is, if I confess
Hmm.
and he remains silent,
Hmm.
or he just knows the player on the police tells only that if you confess, okay, you will be set free. Okay. And if you don't confess, there is a chance that you will end up in prison for 20 years. But
So when I
purely game theory
confess,
terms,
yeah. So when I confess, I don't know whether I may get 0 or 5, right?
you may get 0 or 5. Purely in game theory terms, this is known. This is known.
Okay. Hmm.
Doing this, they have to play an action. But what they do not know is what the other player is going to play.
Okay.
Okay, that is not known. Right? I'll show you the matrix also similar in a file. Okay. So similarly for suspect 2, let's say they have this information. Using this information, now they have to decide what action to play. Okay, so that is the challenge here. Okay. So I'll show it in this form of this interesting animation here, right? So this becomes clear now. If both of them confess simultaneously, they are going to spend 5 years in prison. So first, this is prisoner 1. He confesses. Other player has remained silent, so he is not put in prison. He is set free. Other player, prisoner is put for 20 years in jail. Okay. So similarly, right? So similarly, so now I'll capture this in the form of a matrix, right? So this is the matrix now. So is this clear? This matrix. So the rows belong to player 1. The columns belong to player 2 or prisoner 2. Both of them confess. -5, -5. Okay. Now in game theory, what we do is we assume that this matrix is known. This matrix is known to the both the players. Okay, they know this thing. Now the challenge is, what is the solution to the above problem? Okay, what is the solution? Right. So if you just look at, so what would an optimization theorist do? If you give this problem to an optimization theorist, he will say, let's try to maximize the sum utility of both of the prisoners, right? So suppose what do you think intuitively, if you look at this matrix, no, what do you think? So more than matrix, let me show you this. So what is optimal here? What looks like an optimal? Both of them remaining silent, right? See, if both of them, suppose they were friends, both of them remaining silent looks like, okay, they are going to just spend 1 year in prison. Both of them will do good here. Okay. Now, that is a solution from an optimization theorist point of view, because they are trying to maximize this, right? Looks like this is the solution. But now, this is not a rational solution. Why? So why do we think that the other player is a friend of the first player, right? This is like, take the context of Jio and Airtel, right? They are not friends, right? So they are competitors. They don't care about the benefit or non-benefit of the other party, right? So that's why we call this as not a rational solution, right? So each player has incentive to deviate from this solution. Let us look at this. Now, if you think of this as solution, if you advise this solution to both the players, suppose as a third party, you say that, okay, you remain silent. I've asked the other prisoner also to remain silent, just like a third party, suppose. Okay. Now, we may agree that finally, when it comes to taking action, if player 1 is sure that the other player is going to remain silent, he can deviate, right? Why should he spend 1 year in prison? If he deviates, he knows that he is going to be set free, right? So there is an incentive for deviation when the other player is going to stick to that action. Right? Similarly for player 2. So player 2, if you advise him this strategy, there is incentive to deviate. Why should he spend 1 year in prison? You will rather confess and set free, right? So now you see there is an incentive to deviation, right? So now, how would a game theorist think of, right? The solution should be such that there should be no incentive to deviate for any player, right? So Nash equilibrium, so this is how you define Nash equilibrium. So A1 star, A2 star, This is the action pair. Okay, it should be such that if I deviate, instead of A1 star, player 1 chooses some other action A1. Is utility. So this is I think the direction should be different here. So I was writing it for a minimization problem. Okay, suppose you want to minimize your utility, but here it's maximization. So think of this as greater than equal to. Okay, if you try to deviate from the solution, your utility should only decrease. Okay, similarly for player 2, if player 1 is sticking to the strategy, if you try to deviate, okay, your utility should only decrease, right? So if you are able to find such a pair, that is actually the solution from a game theorist point of view. Okay, so confessing, both of them confessing is going to be Nash equilibrium in the solution. Why? Because now if both stick to the strategy, right? If player 1 tries to deviate now, instead of confessing, if he tries to remain silent, he will end up being 20 years in prison. Okay. So similarly, if player 2 tries to deviate now, he will get 20 years in prison. It doesn't matter what the benefit or profit or loss of other players doesn't matter here, right? Player 1 tries to maximize his own profit, right? So now it's confess, right? So this is actually the Nash equilibrium solution, right? So this is the interesting paradigm of game theory, right? Where the optimization will not hold as a solution once the players are competing against each other. Okay, so this is known as the equilibrium solution. So once both of them stick to the strategy, it's at equilibrium. Means you cannot move further. You cannot change your actions now. You have to just stick to the strategy. Okay? So this is the game theory solution. So let me see. Nilakantan, so it's 12:45. Can I just end it at some logical point in another 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure, Naveen. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, okay. So I'll continue. Okay, so I'll show you a couple of other interesting problems here. So this is actually known as the battle of choices. So let's say there is a couple who wish to go to a movie, and each one has its own preference. So let's say player 1 likes a romantic movie, then action movie. Okay. So whereas player 2 likes action movie, right? Now, if but they want to go together, okay? If they don't go together, right? So they don't fetch any utility, right? So essentially they want to go together. So you see, if both of them choose to go to romantic movie, player 1, since he likes romantic movie, so he will get a higher utility. Player 2 is satisfied, right? But not very happy though, but okay, fine. But if player 1 goes to romantic movie and player 2 chooses to go to action individually, they are not happy. 0, 0 utility, right? So that's not what they want. Similarly, action and romantic, okay? Again, they are not happy. Again, if both of them go to action movie together, player 1 is okay since they have gone together, but player 2 likes action movie, so he gets a higher utility of 2, right? Now, in this context, if you see, there are two Nash equilibriums. So these are the two Nash equilibriums. So this is to emphasize the point, like unlike optimality, there can be multiple Nash equilibriums. Not necessary that there have to be a unique Nash equilibrium in a game. So here is an example of matching coins. Okay. So this is an example where there is no Nash equilibrium. Okay. Right. So here, so this is a interesting game where you have to take an action, head or tail. It's not like talking. So each player has to pick head or tail. It's like you show head or tail, right? Simultaneously. Suppose both of them show head, right? Looks like so player 1 has so player 2 has to give the coin to player 1. So he loses the coin. So he makes a benefit of, let's say, $1. Player 2 loses the coin, so he's at loss. So if the coins don't match, head and tail, right? If the coins don't match, player 1 will have to give the coin to, it's like a betting game. Player 1 has to give the coin to player 2. Now tail and head, coins don't match, player 1 loses the coin he has, okay? Again, tail and tail, coins match, player 1 will win the coin. Okay. So now this is a kind of a circular game. So in this game, so there is no Nash equilibrium. Means you cannot find a strategy pair where there is no incentive to deviate. Okay, so there's always incentive to deviate. So there's no Nash equilibrium, right? But we have to be careful. There's no Nash equilibrium in pure strategies, right? So this is where Nash comes into, John Nash comes into picture, right? So what John Nash shows is, for any game like this, okay, there is always a Nash equilibrium in mixed strategies. What is mixed strategy? You have to introduce randomness, right? So instead of deterministically choosing head or tail, what the players do is they'll toss the coin now, right? If you allow them to toss and make use of randomness, then there is a Nash equilibrium. So this is what the seminal result of Nash. So I'll quickly show you what is these things. So now, let's say P is the probability of choosing head. So that means player 1 is using a coin where head turns up with the probability P. Similarly, player 2 is choosing a coin where head turns with probability Q. Okay. Once we have a setting of this form, so we can talk about the expected utilities now, U1 and U2. So we can talk about their expected utilities. So I'll not go into this computation, but not very difficult, right? You have to take the 4 different cases. Each case will occur with some probability, and you find out the utility in each of the case, and then you can add up all the utilities. You will get the expected cost, expected utility. So now we are talking about mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. So I have to choose this P star and Q star such that this equation holds, right? So that is the Nash equilibrium strategy extended to the case of mixed strategy. So in this particular case, for this particular example, 0.5, 0.5 is a mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. So what does that mean? So you have to toss a coin. So that means player 1 has to choose a coin where the probability of head is 0.5. Player 2 has to choose a coin where the probability of head is 0.5. So this is a symmetric scenario. Once you change the number, so you will get something else. You can get something else also. It need not be symmetric always. Right. So this was an introduction to game theory. So I will end, I think, maybe hardly in another 5 minutes by telling you how we can map it to the problem at hand. Okay. So let's again recall. So we have 2 5G operators, maybe like Airtel and Jio, and one Wi-Fi network, perhaps set up by Google or something, right? And now objective is to find this beta 1 and beta 2. Already optimization we have seen how to do optimization, how to solve optimization problem. So here, so let's see how to solve this problem. Okay. So the game theoretic formulation is like this. These two are the players, 5G1 and 5G2 are the players. What is the action set? Now they have to choose a beta 1 in 0, 1, in this interval 0 to 1. Okay. And however, we have a more general problem where further these actions should satisfy this constraint. So what we have is a constraint game theory problem. But still the definition of Nash equilibrium is not going to change. Okay, so beta 1 plus beta 2 should be less than equal to 1. And the payoffs are something like this. Okay. So payoffs also are like before, whatever we had, right? Now, so this is the Nash equilibrium definition itself of Nash equilibrium, right? So beta 1 star, beta 2 star, we want to identify. It should be such that if player 1 tries to deviate from that recommended strategy, his net payoff is going to reduce. That means if payoff is going to reduce, he will not move from that strategy. You see? Yeah. So this is the Nash equilibrium definition of Nash equilibrium, right? And now, in the context of optimization, so how do you find beta 1 star? So beta 1 star is obtained by solving this problem. You fix a beta 2 star, find out that beta 1 which will maximize this function, right? Subject to this constraint. Okay, as simple as that. So again, it again boils down to optimization. but we are doing some kind of iterative optimization here. Right? So this is what we will use to to propose an algorithm to find out the Nash equilibrium, right? So similarly, beta 2 star also is obtained by solving this optimization problem, right? So this is the iterative procedure for computing Nash equilibrium. So you start with some initial strategy, initial value, maybe 0.1, 0.1, something like that. We don't know whether it's a solution, right? So what you do is iteratively we start solving this problem now. Using the previous value, right? Given this value of beta 2, so find out what is the value of beta 1 that is going to solve this problem, right? And that is going to be a new value of beta 1. Similarly, beta 2, right? And then if there is no difference in the payoff, that means you have reached the Nash equilibrium solution. So you have to keep on iteratively solving this until you reach the Nash equilibrium solution. Okay, right. So I'll end at this point. So what I will do is I'll show you the game theoretic formulation also here. Okay. So this is the game theoretic formulation. You see, I started with some initial value beta 1k, beta 2k. Okay, and v1, v2. So what I will do is I am going to solve this problem now, right? You see, within each loop, okay, so you will have one CVX begin and one CVX end. What I am doing essentially is fixing the value of beta 2. You see, beta 2 I fixed and trying to find what is the optimal beta 1. Here, if you see, fixing the value of beta 1, I am trying to find beta 2 that is optimal. Okay. After that, I'll find out what are the new payoffs, right? I'll compare it with the old one, what was the existing payoff, and it will not exactly be equal to 0. Okay, so if it is more than an epsilon, so this is the epsilon, it's like a tolerance. So this is generally used in algorithms for termination. Okay, so this is the termination criteria. So I'm going to terminate. Okay, so this is again how we use the optimization framework to solve a game theory problem. Okay, so let me run this part of the code also. So I'll again use this checkpoint here. Okay, right. So I've solved the optimization problem now. Okay, let's look at what is opt. Okay, so let's look at this. Again, we have these things already we have seen. Okay, so eventually I'll show you. Okay, now I'll run again. Now you see game theory, the solution will not come in one step. Okay, so it is going to iteratively keep on solving, and after a few iterations, we ended up at the solution. Okay, now first let's look at the optimal solution. Okay, so B1, B2, right? So this was B1, B2. What was V opt? Okay, so I'll also show you these values. V opt. Okay, V opt is this much. So what is the Nash equilibrium solution? So let's look at the Nash equilibrium solution. B1k, B2k. Right, you see? Now, optimization solution was telling use 19% of the time. Right, so roughly 19% of the time. Okay, so this is what optimization.
Naveen, is that
okay.
B1, B2?
Yeah, sorry. Let me run again. I'll show you something because those values are overridden. Okay, so now here, yeah, I will do one more thing here. Okay, quit debugging. I will make this comment here. I'll open this. Okay, CVX quite true. So what happens is now, whatever this thing you are seeing, no, so that will not come here. Okay, so it will just stay quiet and it will do the computation. It will not show this background calculation. Okay, so let's run this again. Okay, now the code has come until this point. Let's look at what is B1, B2. B1, B2. Yeah, B1, B2 is this now. So V opt is this now. Okay, this is V opt. What happened earlier was those values got overridden. because I'm using those variables B1, B2, right? So we have to be careful. Now the code has run until this point. So let me continue running now. It will not show. You see, this part has become white now. Okay. So now we have to show B1K, B2K. So this was as before. Now you see, earlier optimization solution says that allocate 13% to base station 1, 14% to base station 2. But now the game theory solution says you allow 20% to base station 1 and 21% to base station 2. But what happens to optimal, VOPT? See, optimization will always give the maximum solution, right? Oh, okay. So interesting. So this was a particular example where the optimal, the Nash equilibrium solution is matching the optimal solution. Okay. So let's look at another scenario. Okay. So I just changed these values to the earlier value. So now B1, B2. So sometimes Nash equilibrium will match the optimization solution, right? So you have very good solution in hand at that time. So such a thing happens. So we in our numerical results, there are some range of values where optimization solution gives results which matches the optimization solution. So B1K, B2K, okay. And now let us see what is V of. Sorry.
Naveen, I think you have to
hit
the breaking point.
No. VNE. I got it wrong. Earlier also, yeah, I have to look at VNE. The variable is VNE actually. V Nash equilibrium. Okay. So VOPT is here. Okay. So VNE is here. This one. Okay. So yeah. So let us again go back to this old setting. So let me clear the screen for you. So one last round. Okay. So wait. So let's run. Okay. So I have my B1, B2 here. I have my VOPT here. Okay. So now let's also look at V1 opt, V2 opt. Okay. So now one more. Let's continue. We have to look at these things. Okay. Now we have B1K, B2K. So I have to look at VNE. Okay. So VNE is 1.87. VOPT is 2.20. Of course. So optimization will give you a better, is known as the social utility, better social utility, right? But that is not a Nash equilibrium solution. So we'll also look at what is the individual utilities these players get. Okay. So V2 NE, right? So this is the individual utility, right? You see, if you look at the Nash equilibrium solution, right? So although it's of this form, but there was an incentive for one of the players to move away from the Nash equilibrium solution. So from this solution, okay. So this is so what happens in Nash equilibrium context is once you stick to this strategy, right? You cannot deviate from this. If you deviate, you cannot make a higher profit. Okay? So yeah, so this was a very simple example, but I think this would have conveyed the idea about how to use this kind of the CVX techniques to solve certain problems at hand. Okay. So I will end here. So this is something we have done, but we will not go through these things. The very detailed things we have done for a huge network. Okay. So network of so I think these are the base stations and these are the access points, right? And sometimes the game theory solution matches the optimal, right? And the advantages with game theory is you can implement it in a decentralized fashion compared with optimization solution. So let me not go through this. I'm going to end here. I think I overshot the time, but the game theory things I always like to talk about and very useful techniques also. So these are some references from the book's point of view. Yeah, this is for the communications, right? Fundamentals of digital communication. So from the networking point of view, there's a book by Professor Kumar, Manjunath and Puri. So Professor Kumar is my PhD advisor. There's a book on wireless networking. And if you want to know more about convex optimization and TVX toolbox, so there's a book by Stephen Boyd and Vandenberg. Okay, so these are interesting things. And then this is something for game theory, introduction to game theory, right? And so this is for learning. So I'm not going to talk about learning, right? So sometime in future we can talk about learning algorithms. So these are some papers. So perhaps these are many things are related to LTE, but these are applicable to 5G also. So as I mentioned, no, so the work done for LTE, but I'm extending it to 5G also. So it's for any cellular technology, this is applicable. 5G, future technologies also 6G. Okay, so these are some papers in this direction. So I'll thank here. Yeah, sorry for overshooting, but I can take questions. Yeah. Okay. So I can take up some questions.
It was really a difficult topic. You made it very nice and elegant to understand easily.
Thank you. Especially game theory is always interesting. So it's more like it's fun actually in game theory. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you have already done some work on it. It seems you have with Chaitanya, and I think that's your student, right?
Yeah, Chaitanya was my BTech project student. Yeah, so we have done work here. Yeah.
Okay.
So these are so especially that last part I showed, no. So these all for large networks. So these are all simulations in MATLAB using CVX toolbox only. So all this, so we have done work here actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this work is published now. What you are showing in the slide, yeah, this work.
Yeah, this is published work actually. So it's published in conferences. One was in SPCOM, especially optimization game theory. So I didn't talk about this. There is a reinforcement learning work we have done. So that was at CompsNet. It was invited. This is I just presented. This was my another student, Utsavi. She was also my BTech project student. This is slightly related to auction theory. I didn't talk about this, but again, auction theory is a subfield of game theory. So, so this was in that direction, but not related to this talk. So, so learning algorithm I didn't talk about, but when maybe at a future context, no. Just show you a flavor. Yeah, time t, no. So now, yeah, frames will repeat. So once a repetition is there, how to set beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. So it's of that problem of that nature. Yeah.
Okay. So very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe the detailed network model, I will try to look at the paper and try to understand.
Sure. Yeah. So papers are there. Sure. Thing also I can share actually. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And some of the participants too, they were looking for the code, which one you were showing. So
I will share that part of the code actually. I'll share it with Neelakantan. Dr. Neelakantan can share it with the participants.
Yeah, even you can directly, since you have logged in the files, you can directly just upload it in the class materials folder.
Okay, let me see how to do that. Should I?
You are in the Teams, right?
Yeah, I'm in the Teams.
Okay, now on the top, if you go to the Teams, you can see, go to the left panel.
Yes, here.
You will go, okay. No problem. Then you share it with me. I will be able to do that. Not an issue. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll share. Is there? Yeah, I'm trying to see here. Yeah. Upload option is there? No.
No, I mean when you just log in the Teams, you can see that the files. Anyway, I will show you later also. No problem.
Here I think
yes.
No. Here.
Yes. Here. Yeah.
Files,
now we go to the
files.
Teams. Then go to Teams. Yeah.
Teams. Okay.
Now you are in the team, right? Your Teams should appear there. Okay, I will add that. No problem. I will check it. No, not in the team. You should be able to see the team at FDP.
Okay. Or I will just email it to you.
So text
During
me.
one of the other sessions, you can upload it to the participants also.
So any quick questions?
Any quick questions we can discuss and. Otherwise, also my email ID, Dr. Nilakantan can share. You
Yeah.
can drop an email to me, so I'll be happy to share details with you.
Yes, sure. Thanks for your extended effort. You have spent a lot of time, and without a break, you have been taking for 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, I think I exceeded time, but whenever that game theory portion, it's I don't want to rush through that portion. I hope
Okay.
I went at proper pace. Not sure, but if there are any queries, I'll be happy to share with the. I mean, I'll happy to discuss over email with the participants also.
Yeah.
Right.
Good. I think, yeah, fine then. Yeah, I think we don't want to take much of your time also.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Nilakantan. So very nice actually. So we started interaction between IIT Tirupati and IIT Goa in this fashion. So I think
Yes.
if the mutual interest, no, we'll catch up in the future also.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Great. Wonderful knowing.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah. So
Ravi.
thanks to all participants. So I think I'll click on this leave button, no?
Yes.
Leave button.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank
Okay,
you
then.
all.
See you.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, participants, we can disperse now, and we will meet again at 2:15. So we will meet again back at 2:15.